In 1999, Webvan raised $375 million in its IPO. The company delivered groceries ordered online directly to customers' homes within a 30-minute window. The CEO described it as a completely new way for Americans to shop. Analysts called it one of the most important business models of the Internet era. The company had $800 million in commitments from investors including Goldman Sachs and SoftBank. By July 2001, Webvan had filed for bankruptcy. 4,000 employees lost their jobs. In 2021, Instacart was valued at approximately $39 billion. In 2023, it went public. The company delivers groceries ordered online directly to customers' homes, usually within 1 to 2 hours. The business model that destroyed Webvan in 2001 became one of the most valuable consumer technology companies in the world 20 years later. The question worth sitting with before anything else: did Webvan fail because the idea was wrong? Or did it fail because the idea was right at a moment when the conditions required to make it work did not yet exist? And if the answer is the second one, if the failure was primarily a timing failure rather than an idea failure, what does that change about what you can learn from it? The conditions that Webvan required to be viable in 1999 were, in several critical dimensions, not present. Broadband internet penetration in American homes in 1999 was approximately 3%. The majority of Webvan's target customers were using dial-up internet connections that made the ordering process slow and unreliable. The smartphone did not exist. Customers who wanted to place an order while making a meal, standing in front of an open refrigerator, had no mechanism to do so. The cost of last-mile delivery in 1999 was substantially higher than it became once the shared gig economy infrastructure, which Uber Freight, DoorDash and Instacart all eventually built on, was available. Webvan had to employ full-time drivers with full-time benefits. The unit economics of every delivery included a labor cost that had no path to becoming variable at the scale the model required. The warehouse technology of 1999 was not the automated warehouse technology of 2019. Webvan built enormous, custom-designed fulfillment centers at a capital cost that reflected the engineering requirements of a pre-robotics era. The same warehouse function in 2023 cost a fraction of what Webvan spent per unit of throughput. None of these conditions were Webvan's fault. They were simply the conditions that existed in 1999. The investors who funded Webvan to the tune of $800 million were not wrong about the market. They were wrong about when the market would be viable, specifically about whether the infrastructure required to make the unit economics work was available or buildable in the time frame the investment required. This is the specific nature of a timing failure. Not that the vision was wrong, but that the vision was correct for a set of conditions that did not yet exist and that the organization could not afford to wait for. Have you ever been early to something? A market, a product, an idea, in a way that was indistinguishable from being wrong? Leave a comment. Pets.com became the symbol of Dotcom excess precisely because its failure was so visible and its business model so apparently absurd in retrospect. The sock puppet mascot, the Super Bowl ad, the IPO that raised $82.5 million 9 months before the company shut down. The story, as usually told, is about hubris, a company spending recklessly on brand awareness for a business model that was never viable. The timing analysis complicates this narrative significantly. Online pet supplies in 1999 were constrained by many of the same conditions as online grocery delivery: low broadband penetration, no mobile ordering, and last-mile delivery economics that required Amazon-scale volume to be sustainable for the low-margin, high-weight product category that pet food represents. Chewy, which was founded in 2011 and acquired by PetSmart in 2017 for $335 billion, is the current version of the business Pets.com tried to build. Chewy generated approximately $10.9 billion in net sales in fiscal year 2024. The company sells pet food and supplies online and delivers them to customers' homes. The business model that failed catastrophically in 2000 became a multi-billion-dollar company when the infrastructure conditions had changed. The question the timing analysis produces is not whether Pets.com or Webvan were competently managed. The question is whether any management team could have built those businesses viably in 1999, and if the answer is no, what that means for the investors and employees who committed to them. If the timing analysis of business failure, looking at whether the failure was a vision failure or a condition failure, is the level of specificity that makes this channel worth your time, the like is the direct signal. Jeff Bezos made a timing decision in 1994 that is worth examining in this context. Bezos identified the Internet's commercial potential in 1994, left his hedge fund job in the middle of the year to avoid forfeiting his annual bonus, and drove to Seattle to found Amazon. The timing of this decision, mid-year before the holiday season, 3 months before broadband was commercially available to residential customers, has been described in the standard Amazon origin story as a reflection of Bezos's conviction. The more precise description is that Bezos made a decision about what was required to survive the timing gap. Amazon chose books, a product category where the economics of low-margin, high-volume sales could work with dial-up internet and ground shipping, and where the selection advantage of online retail was maximally available. Amazon did not choose groceries or pet supplies or furniture, categories where the timing gap between the Internet's arrival and the infrastructure required to make delivery economics viable was longer. The choice of books was not a vision of the future of retail. It was a calculation about which product category had the shortest distance between the current conditions and the conditions required for the model to be viable. Webvan and Pets.com were not wrong about the future. They were wrong about the distance. The practical lesson from timing failures is uncomfortable because it suggests that some failures are not preventable by better management, better execution, or better strategic thinking. Some failures are the product of being correct about the direction and wrong about the distance. And no amount of operational excellence closes the gap between the current conditions and the conditions required. This is genuinely difficult to accept in a business culture that attributes outcomes to decisions and decisions to the quality of the people making them. The timing failure narrative produces a conclusion that the market culture is structurally resistant to. Sometimes smart people making reasonable decisions with real capital, building real products, fail because the moment was wrong. The investors who funded Webvan did not make an analysis error in any simple sense. They made a set of assumptions about how quickly the required conditions would materialize. Assumptions that were wrong, but that were reasonable given the information available in 1999. The 4,000 Webvan employees who lost their jobs in 2001 were not failed by bad management in the conventional sense. They were failed by the gap between the moment and the conditions, a gap that no organizational capability they possessed could have closed. The practical thing, when evaluating any business model that requires multiple enabling conditions to be present simultaneously, the question is not whether the conditions will eventually exist. They usually will. The question is whether the organization can survive, financially, operationally, in terms of its team's capacity, until the conditions arrive. That is a different calculation from evaluating the ultimate viability of the model. And it is the calculation that Webvan and Pets.com got wrong. The next episode looks at a case where the conditions were present. The model was viable, the moment was right, and the organization still produced an outcome that required explaining. This content was developed with the support of artificial intelligence tools and underwent human review, editorial curation, and approval before publication. The analysis presented here is strictly educational and philosophical in nature, grounded in behavioral psychology and classical stoicism.